I built and tested half a dozen voice agents in Synthflow this week, testing everything from the latency to interruption handling to see how Synthflow stacks up against some of the other voice AI tools. In this video, I'll walk through 7 tests, one of which is a bit of a deal breaker, so you can decide whether or not Synthflow is the right tool for you. Voice clarity, interruption handling, latency, human handoff, data extraction, integrations, and then we'll finally look at pricing. For each area, I'll score it either a pass, fail, or partial, and then at the end, I'll share whether or not I choose Synthflow over some of the competitors. So first up, I'm going to test the general clarity and quality of the voice engine. Now, like most voice AI tools, Synthflow is using 11 Labs as the primary text-to-speech engine, which is good. And also worth noting that you can clone your own voice directly within Synthflow. You don't have to go and do that in 11 Labs and connect your own keys. So we're going to save that. And one of the things that I do not love about Synthflow is that you can't simulate a test call within a platform. So if you click here, you can see this is coming soon. It's something that they are clearly working on. And this is quite a typical feature in other platforms, but Synthflow just don't have this yet. So I need to enter my phone number and get it to actually call my device for us to run a test.
How can I help?
Hi, can I book a tea time?
Absolutely, I can help with that. Just to confirm, are you in the Europe-London time zone? And what day were you hoping to play?
Ideally looking to book a tea time tomorrow, maybe around 3 o'clock.
It looks like we don't have any tea times available tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Would you like to try a different time tomorrow? Or would Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday work for you?
Yeah, what's a good time on Monday?
Great. On Monday, we have tea times available at 9 in the morning, 12 noon, and 3 in the afternoon. Do any of those work for you?
Okay, I've just put this on hold and we're going to run our second test now. I'm going to start interrupting it and seeing how the agent handles interruptions.
I just need your full name, whether you'd like to play 9 or 18.
Can I actually change the booking to Tuesday instead?
I can't change booking.
My name is Marcus, and can I book 18 holes, please?
Thanks, Marcus. I'll book you in for 12 noon on Monday for 18 holes.
No, can I do Wednesday, actually?
You got it, Marcus. I booked you for 12 noon on Wednesday for 18 holes.
Okay, so pretty good. The quality of the voice was very good, exactly what I'd expect from 11 Labs, and the interruption handling was not bad. I interrupted it several times to change the day and change the number of holes, and each time it adapted well and caught what I was saying, even though I was talking over the agent. Now, the only thing that was a bit of an issue there was the latency. The time it was taking to get back to me seemed quite long and a bit annoying. Now, I've done a lot of latency testing across different voice AI tools, and one of the things that frustrates me a little bit about Synthflow is that, as far as I can see, and I might be going crazy here, there is no way of seeing your actual latency inside the Synthflow platform. So if you go into the call logs, there is nowhere, as far as I can see, that highlights the latency. And equally, if we go into the analytics, we've got things like sentiment, agent performance, whether the agents are hitting their goals. This stuff is all very nice, but I'm not seeing anything around latency, which is a little bit concerning considering that this is something that seems to be a bit of an issue. I want to be able to see what my latency is so I can adjust my prompt to make changes to the agent to bring that latency down. And without being able to monitor that, that is pretty tricky. So in the absence of actually being able to see my latency, I will do the next best thing. I'm going to look at the audio file and measure the time between when I stop speaking and the first byte of audio when the agent starts speaking. Now, obviously, latency varies depending on what you're asking the agent. Generally, I was seeing most turns taking around about 2 seconds. The slowest one was about 5 seconds. That was where it was calling a tool, so it had to go to cow.com, query an API. So makes sense that would take longer. The best that I saw was about 1 second, which is not ideal given this is a relatively simple agent. So just for comparison, when I ran a standardized latency test across Synthflow, Vapi, and Retail, so this was using a very, very simple prompt and using the identical stack across each of them, so DeepGram, 11 Labs, and GPT 4.1, we saw the latency for Retail around 714 milliseconds and Vapi 539 milliseconds. So it's definitely not quite as snappy as some of the alternatives. And at 1 second latency, that does give me a few concerns as to how this would function in production. But that said, there are things that you can do to bring down latency. And also it's worth noting that latency can vary massively day to day based on what's going on the Synthflow platform, the phone number you're using, and a whole host of other things. So take this with a bit of a pinch of salt, but I'm going to say for the latency test, it's a fail. So next, I'm going to be testing how reliably the agent transfers the call to a human if I ask it to do so. We're also going to be testing data extraction in this call as well. So whether or not it can take things that I've said on the call, extract them in a kind of clean way that could then be sent over to something like High Level or HubSpot. So I've created actions for both of these. So in our agent, you can click on the Actions tab, and I'm just going to say during the call, we're going to add a call transfer action, and we're just going to attach one of these actions. So I believe it's this one that I want to be using. Annoyingly, I can't actually see all the text here, which is a little bit frustrating, but I will double check that is the right one. Then I'm also going to attach an action for information extractor, and this is going to extract the number of holes that the caller wants to play. So whether it's 9 or 18 holes, and I've set both of those as options. So let's do another test run and see how it goes. Hi, can I book a tea time on Tuesday at 9 a.m.?
You're all set for a tea time at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, January 13th. Can I grab your full name, how many players will be joining, and would you like to play 9 or 18 holes?
9 holes, 2 people, and my name is Marcus.
Perfect, Marcus. You're booked for 2 people, 9 holes at 9 a.m. on Tuesday.
Great.
Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Yeah, could I speak to the manager, please?
Let me transfer you to a human. Please hold on.
Hello, we are not available now. Please leave your name and phone number.
Hey, there we go. So what I'm interested to see is whether or not our data extraction works. I'm going to click on actions, and here we can see that for how many holes, we can see that it returned the value 9 holes. So for both of those tests, I'm going to say that's a clear pass. So next we're going to test out Synthflow's integration. So if you go over to the integration page, you can see some of the native integrations that Synthflow offers. Now I'll say that straight up, while this may not look like an awful lot, this is pretty impressive compared to some of the other tools. If we go into retail, for example, which is arguably Synthflow's main competitor, they don't have a huge amount of integrations. You can add functions, but that only connects to cal.com, or you can connect it to an MCP server, which in theory allows you to connect it to almost anything, but in practice, there's a few technical steps that are required to do that. Similar story with Vapi. Vapi's got kind of 4 or 5 native integrations the last time I checked. Now, of course, with all these platforms, if you're working directly with the API, the world is your oyster, and the same is true working with Synthflow. But to me, this is pretty impressive that we've got this range of native integrations that don't really require any technical expertise. And obviously with things like Zapier and Make.com, that opens up the range of tools you can connect your voice agent to, literally thousands of tools. I would love to see an N8N one here too. That would kind of be the icing on the cake for me, but I'm not going to complain. The options that we've got here are pretty amazing, and I also quite like that you can bring your own keys for things like OpenAI and 11 Labs. So the one I'm going to test today is cal.com, because we've got this Golf AI receptionist. It makes sense that we could use that to book appointments on a calendar. So I've already gone ahead and entered my API key from cal.com here, so we've connected that integration. Now, if we go to our agent, I'll just show you how I've set this up. So we've got an action, and I've created a real-time booking action. This was super simple to set up. By comparison, again, doing a similar thing on retail.com, there's a lot of work that kind of goes into setting up all the time zones and making sure you're calling the tools in the right way. That wasn't the case with Synthflow. All I did was enter my API key, create this action, which frankly was pretty much like all the defaults were set correctly. Then in my agent, I've said use calcom412, which is the name of the action here, to book a tea time on the calendar. And I've given it a bit of information on how to do the formatting. But frankly, this is me being overcautious. I don't think this is necessarily required. It's just something that I like to do to make sure that the events are always sent in the same format. So I'm going to run the same test as before, and we're going to see if that appears on the calendar. Hi, can I book a tea time on Tuesday at 9 a.m.?
You're all set for a tea time at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, January 13th.
So we can see that that has scheduled the meeting correctly in cal.com. We've got 9 holes on Tuesday, January 13th at 9 a.m. So as I said, having set up the same integration across a few different platforms, Synthflow has been by far the easiest one to set up integrations on, and the range of integrations they have is definitely the most impressive. So a big pass from me on that one. So finally, we're going to look at the big one and see how Synthflow stacks up against the alternatives when it comes to pricing. So for this one, rather than me having lots of windows open and dragging pricing sliders around, we're going to use voiceai.guide. This is a little calculator I built for comparing the pricing across different voice AI tools. So if we go to the top and let's say we want a no-code tool, and let's set the number of calls per month to, let's just go 500 for now. Average length, 2 minutes. So pretty standard for an inbound agent. Then GPT 4.1, we use the platform numbers, USA and Canada. And let's just get rid of no code actually for now. And then we can see all the platforms head to head. So based on that, so we got Synthflow here in the third column. So we've got Vapi, Retail, Synthflow and Bland. So Synthflow is coming out as $143 a month. And our per minute cost is coming up as 14 cents per minute. So it's not the most affordable platform. We've got Retail coming in at 13, just slightly cheaper, and then Vapi at 9 cents a minute. Now, it makes sense. Vapi is almost always going to be the most affordable platform because they're kind of pitching it as infrastructure as a service. They are kind of moving more into the no-code space with their visual workflow builder. Really, if we're doing like an apples to apples comparison of no-code voice AI tools, it's probably a fair comparison to compare Retail AI versus Synthflow. They're both broadly trying to do the same thing. So across the board, you can see that Retail AI is slightly cheaper. And it's also worth pointing out that this has changed very recently. So Synthflow up until last month was one of the only voice AI tools to offer pricing tiers. So you could pay, I think, like $399 a month, I think it was, for a certain number of minutes. They've only recently changed to this sort of pick and mix pricing, which is actually a good thing because it means that you're going to pay only for what you use. And generally speaking, the price you pay is likely going to be less than if you pay for a fixed monthly plan. So Synthflow, from a pricing perspective, I think are moving in the right direction. It's just that their pricing breakdown is currently a little bit more expensive than the alternatives. And then one other thing, just really minor, that is kind of worth bearing in mind is that from a testing perspective, as I mentioned earlier, on Vapi and Retail, you don't have to buy any phone numbers if you're just testing out the platform. You can do testing and simulation without actually having a phone number. With Synthflow, on the other hand, you will actually need to buy a phone number, even just for testing purposes, and it's one phone number per agent. So if you're building 10, 20 agents, although it's only $1.50 per month per phone number, if you need to buy 10, 20, 30 phone numbers, that can quickly ramp up. So on the whole, it's affordable. I like that they've kind of moved to the pay-as-you-go pricing because this makes it more affordable at scale, but it is definitely not the most affordable option. So I'm going to give it a kind of a partial here because it's not bad, but it's also not the best. So overall, at 7 tests, we had 1 fail, 1 partial, and 5 passes, which is pretty good going. Now, if you want to see how Synthflow stacks up against some of the alternatives, you can check out this video where I tested Synthflow head-to-head against Vapi and Retail. See you in the next video.